What's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview. Every single week, we interview straight up badasses, dude. People that are out there just crushing it, doing big things, making waves, making big names for themselves. So today's guest, you guys, really stoked and honored to be able to have the opportunity to interview this rock star and deliver this interview to you guys. So this guy has spoken on TED Talks. He's a contributor for Forbes and Huffington Post. This guy's built a multi-million-dollar business before the age of 30. So this dude's an absolute rock star, right? He's in the education space, coaching, consulting space. So you guys are going to absolutely love this interview. He goes through so many different things in this interview of how you can go out there and be successful, how you can be more proactive, be more productive, and make more money. And again, you guys, this dude's done all of this before the age of 30. So it's pretty damn amazing. So before we jump into today's interview, though, got to plug our sponsors really quick. PerfectStormNow.com, front-end real estate agent-specific software. It's what I use in my business to go out there and generate thousands and thousands and thousands of leads. And it's free, right? The site's not free. The site's $99 a month, month to month, no registration fees. But the lead tactics that we teach you, there's so many free ways to generate massive amounts of leads, to go out there and become your own Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, and ways to go out there and do very, very effective, affordable lead gen. If you choose to do paid ads. Also, our 90-day mastery bootcamp, next one starting April 6th. That's 12 weeks, 40 hours of straight-up mentorship with me, 3 hours every single week going deep. You have daily access to me. That program is helping you build out your playbook so then that you can go out there and straight-up dominate your real estate business. Dude, if you're not happy with where you're at, like you can't get better results. Like the only way to get different results and better results is you must become better first. How do you become better, right? You need to have a better playbook, period. You need to go out there and study with those that have built it. So go check us out, www.90daymastery.com. Make sure you use promo code LIVEMASTERY, all caps, all one word, all together. All right, you guys, so let's jump in today's interview. You guys are going to absolutely love this. I know I did, and let's dive on in. All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview. Every single week, we interview top badasses and just straight up top entrepreneurs that exist out there in the marketplace, right? These are people that are choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but choosing to go out there and create greatness in their world. So today, you guys, we got a special guest on the show. Really honored and excited to have this guest on the show. This is a young hustler, made his first million before the age of 30. He's a contributor for Forbes and Huffington Post. He's done a TED Talk speech. This dude's done a lot, so really honored to have Arel Moodie on the show today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Joshua, man, I'm excited to be here, brother. I'm totally pumped for this. Let's get it going, man.
Yeah, I love this, man. So I'm watching some of your YouTube stuff. I always love to just study dudes that are doing big things at really a young age like you are. You made your first million before the age of 30. You're doing some massive things today. But before we talk about all that, man, let's rewind the clocks. Like, how did you get started in entrepreneurship in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So my path to entrepreneurship is really interesting. The honest story about it is I was going through this change in my life. I was in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. You know, when you're in college, they say pick your major, which is supposed to be the thing that you do for the rest of your life. And I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. So I decided that I was going to be a lawyer simply because there were no lawyers in my family. And my mom thought it would it'd make her happy, right? But the truth was I spent time with a lawyer and he said, if you don't love law, it's going to eat you up and spit you out. And I was like, well, I don't love it. Right. So I was like, man, what can I do? What is it that is I'm interested? I have no idea. So I was dating a girl at the time who I eventually married. So it turned out pretty good. And she did this thing where you teach in Korea for a year. It was just a program that you do. So I like washed dishes and I did like horrible jobs and I saved up money. I bought a ticket to go visit her and I was completely excited to be in Korea. But when she was teaching, I had nothing was in English, right? There was nothing in English. So I'm sitting there bored. Like, what do I do? The TV's not in English. So she had one book that she picked up in the airport because she liked the color of it because it was purple. It was a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was the first book that I ever read cover to cover. And literally from that moment, like this thing went off in my head, like, no one's teaching this stuff. This stuff is amazing. So I started interviewing successful people because that was one of the things I learned from the book. Rich people, successful people think differently. So I started interviewing like the local pizza shop owner. And I would always ask, and this is a really great question whenever you interview someone successful, always ask them, who else do you know that I could do an interview like this? So they help spread the network for you. And they eventually led me to this man who was a professor of entrepreneurship at my university. And I fell in love with this guy. He became a mentor. He's a mentor of me to this day. And he had an entrepreneurship class. I took it and it like exploded my brain. There was a business plan competition. We won it and we got $5,000 to start my first business. And I've never had a real job since.
Yep. Yep. Love it, man. So, okay, so you made your first million by the time you were 30. And people might see that and be like, oh man, he just, had success right out of the gate, but they never see the behind the scenes. So, okay, so you start interviewing, you read the book, you start interviewing all these other successful entrepreneurs. What was the path like from there, man? I mean, what were some of those struggles that you had to go through, and then eventually caught on and made that million by your 30?
Right. So here's exactly what happened, right? I had no idea what I was doing. So I would go to tons of these events and tons of these trainings. Like I constantly kept trying to pour stuff in my head. But for the first 5 years, I mean, it was just stagnation. I got into 40 grand in personal credit card debt. There was a period of time where I was literally eating like I kid you not, I was eating seasoning and water, right? And my theory behind it is that like the seasoning is what makes food taste good. So if I ate the seasoning, I'd be getting the thing that makes the food taste good, right? So I wish that the words I'm saying really could encapsulate like the emotion. Like anyone who's been through the downs and the lows, they retell the story, but it never really captures how like miserable it was. And it's a lot easier to talk about it like looking in the rearview mirror than when you're driving through it, right? So it was a miserable experience. I was living in a $250 a month apartment that was roach infested. And what happened was, and this was one of my biggest problems, I never figured out my revenue model, right? I kept saying like, if I just build this great thing, this money will get thrown at me, right? And today we have these like unfortunate unicorn situations, which are great for the unicorns, but unfortunate for the entrepreneurs because they see like Instagram makes no revenue and then sells for $1 billion. And they think that's how it works. And the truth is, I couldn't figure out how to get people to open their wallet and give me money, right? I didn't have a clear structure. I kept trying to build something that was awesome. So the process of figuring out a very definitive revenue model, who are the people that we help? What are the problems we solve? So what I did was I started an off-campus housing business. And what we did was we helped students find housing roommates and sublets. So if you were a landlord, you wanted to rent to students, we became that platform. So I did that for a lot of years. And then the crazy thing about it is I was barely making enough to like survive. Barely. I was in a lot of credit card debt. And what happened was I started saying, well, how do I start changing what I'm doing? And what I realized is not a lot of students were getting into entrepreneurship. Not a lot of students were doing it. It was like as horrible as it was a great path. So the first step was figuring out what my revenue model is. The second thing is almost by accident, I realized that what I was doing was of interest to people. There weren't many other people who were doing student entrepreneurship. So we started actually teaching student entrepreneurship. So as the speaking started growing, so did the business. There was kind of like this connection where I was doing something I was passionate about. Because the business itself, like the website, I never was passionate about it. I just wanted to make a bunch of money from it. But the speaking and the helping people, that's really where I started becoming passionate. So they started like bending and lending to each other. And then what happened was I had to make a decision. The speaking side started really taking off. And I had to make a decision. Do I keep doing this thing that I thought was supposed to be my $1 billion baby? Or do I move into this new field that kind of came from what I was doing? And I decided to make the move. And we started organizing entrepreneurship events where we'd get entrepreneurs who are under the age of 30, who built successful companies to come in and speak to students. And we built that into a large business that became the $1 million business. And the reason why this is so important is sometimes the first thing that you start isn't the thing that's going to make you the success that you thought you would be. But that's the thing that leads you into the path that you never would have known existed for that business. So the first business didn't become my $1 million business, but it gave me a kind of a leap or a ledge into the business that would. So it's really important to keep an open mind as you're moving forward to say, is this where I want to stay? Is this where I'm passionate about? Or is there something else that's coming from this that I haven't realized yet?
So when you were in, man, that $40,000 of credit card debt, you're drinking seasoning and water. What kept driving you instead of just jumping back? And I mean, you're a smart dude. I'm sure you could have got a great corporate job. Like, what kept you driving, man?
You know, there's two things that keep you driving, and I'm a really big believer in this. There's this really great book called Relentless. It's written by a guy named Tim Grover. He's the guy who trains Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he has this thing, and I never heard anyone talk about it before, but I resonated with it. It's this idea of using like dark energy to drive you. Like, I have this huge desire to prove that, you know, people who said I was a loser when I was a kid, people who told me I should give up, I had this like ridiculous desire to prove that they were wrong. So the first thing is you have to take this dark energy that usually turns people into depression and turn that into fuel. That fuel of like, I don't want people to be right. I can't let them, like, I can't let people point their finger at me and say, look, I said you couldn't do it. Because I had people telling me get a job, I had people telling me I should give up. And I literally said, I just can't let them be right. So I'm going to do everything in my power to prove them wrong. And then the second thing was, I realized that if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I never could create the lifestyle that I wanted. And I was willing to do anything and everything to prove to myself that if I want a lifestyle in which I control my schedule, which I make the rules, which I'm happy with, I have to be in control of it. So if that means I have to go through crap, I'm willing to go through it. And I think most people, when they go through crap, if they quit, that means they never really wanted it in the first place. That means they only wanted it if it was convenient, if it was good. But the truth is, if you're willing to go through the crap and bear through it and do everything you need to do to get to the other side of it, then you're almost like proving to the universe that you really want this. And it's just not kind of a, oh, if it happens, it'll be nice kind of thing.
Yep. So I mean, I absolutely hate the word failure, right? Because to me, it's not a failure. They're our greatest learning experience. It's a failure if you quit. You know, right? What were some of those biggest failures or biggest learning experiences, not just them, but through your whole entire journey that you've went through that really defined you to the person that you are today?
You know, one of the biggest things that, and I agree with you completely. I really think either you win or you learn, right? You don't really lose. So there was two things that really stuck out to me. Number one is figuring out, how do you solve a problem for people who have a budget to solve it? This is really important, because originally when we were doing our first business, we were trying to like get students, like college students, to pay us a fee to get them, you know, because they're like, it's a problem. They need housing. But, you know, college students aren't paying for that kind of thing. Like, they'll go out and like get food and drinks and that kind of stuff, but they're not going to pay for, you know, those things. So even though we thought, oh, we're entrepreneurs, we're solving a problem, we weren't solving a problem that people who had the budget and was willing to pay for it. And I think there's a lot of people who have like good hearts, and they're knocking on doors, and you know, whether they're a real estate agent and they're working in a certain niche. If you're working toward people who can't pay you, but you want to get paid from them, you're literally be barking up the wrong tree. So it's really important to find niches that have a desire to pay. So once I realized that we were going the wrong way, what we did in that first business is we started selling to universities. So we started saying, hey, you're a university, you're really busy, you know, you don't want to take care of housing. It's more of a thing you like bothers you. Let us take that stress away from you. So then we started actually getting contracts with universities, and that started changing our business model. So from that lesson, that I took with me, that it's important to not just solve problems, but you have to make sure that people you're solving a problem for have a budget. And then on a deeper level, and this is really important, there's a difference between solving a headache pain and a migraine pain. Now, students not finding housing, that was a headache pain. They were like, oh, you know, if I don't find it, it's annoying. You know, if you get a headache, you might take an Advil, you might take a nap, but you don't care. But if you have a migraine pain, I mean, you get Botox shot into your head, you'll take pills, some people want to get their heads chopped off because the pain is so bad. So I think that when you realize, am I solving a migraine problem for people who have a budget, that's going to solve a lot of problems in creating the revenue that you want. And we figured out that the universities have budgets, they have fees, they want to do programming for their students. So once we realized to market towards them and solve their migraines, everything changed.
Yeah, so in one of your talks on YouTube, you're talking about little hinges move big doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I was the big door, I was missing the little hinge. You know, elaborate on that, man, because I know that was a big game changer for you.
It was. So that's a really popular quote from a man named W. Clement Stone. And the idea behind it is sometimes everything that you're doing, it's not like sometimes people think it's a Herculean change. Like I have to do this big lifestyle change, but the truth is you could be doing the exact same thing, but change it. So like one of the things I do now is I have something called True Speaking Success. It's where we help people who want to become speakers become speakers. And sometimes people have these great messages. They're like, nobody's paying me to speak. Well, you don't have to like completely change your message. You don't have to completely change who you are. You just maybe need to tweak how you're positioning yourself or who you're positioning yourself to. Because getting a bunch of people in a community to realize goal setting is important isn't going to help them necessarily like want to spend money for it. But if I can just take a little tweak and maybe go into a college and show students how to set goals so that when they graduate, they are in the right job. Well, now that same presentation with just a little change is solving a major problem for an institution that has the money and wants to pay for it. So a lot of times it's not making these huge changes. It's realizing, how do I take what I'm already good at and just tweak it so I'm solving the right problem for the right person?
Yep, love it, man. So, so you're coaching these not coaching, teaching, training, coaching college students. Right now you got what 2.4 billion millennials. There's not 2.4 billion jobs. Right? So what are some of the things? I know. I mean, these are long semester-long courses that you take people through. What are some of the top tips that you would recommend or advise a millennial to right now to get prepped for what's to come?
Yeah, so if you're just entering the job world or you're trying to make yourself indispensable, there's two things that will completely change the game for you. The first thing is become highly specialized in one specific idea, industry, skill set, right? I hear, there's this thing that was taught to us like, oh, if you have an area of weakness, improve upon your area of weakness so you become this overall strong person. And the truth is that's complete BS, right? The first thing you have to learn is how do you become really highly specialized? And I want you to think of it like this. If I am a general practitioner doctor, I'll make a good living. But if I, do highly specialized cancer surgery, I'm going to be extremely wealthy because I'm highly specialized in a very specific niche that when people have this problem, it's a huge thing. So become excellent in graphic design, become excellent in marketing skills, become excellent in social media marketing. Like, don't try to become a jack of all trades because you become really, a master of nothing, as the quote goes. So the first thing is get really specialized in just one area. And the easiest way to do that is read 5 books on that topic. So if you're interested in social media marketing, just read 5 different books on social media marketing and you'll know more than 80% of the general population on that one subject. And that will help you become an industry leader in it. The second thing that everyone has to do, and I can't stress this enough, you have to learn how to sell. You have to learn, because if you know how to sell and you have a specialized skill, you'll never be hungry. You'll never be without a job. You'll never have a problem. And one of the greatest books I've ever read on selling is You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike in a Seminar. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike in a seminar. It's by a guy named David Sandler. He's since passed away, but he has a company that lives on called the Sandler Sales Institute. If you go through their books, their audio programs, they have coaching if you want to go through that. That will teach you how to sell in a very non-stressful, salesy way. And if you get a specialized skill, you'll never, ever, ever, you'll never worry about what everyone else worries about, because you'll be able to sell yourself or sell your services, and you'll have something that you can sell of value to people.
Now, if you're a young entrepreneur or want to become an entrepreneur, and let's say you're maybe in high school, 18 years old,
Yep.
before you get ready to go to college, would you recommend going to college, or would you recommend, hey, I reach out to a guy like you and say, hey, I'll give you 4 years of my life. I'll work for you for free for that mentorship. Like, how would you advise them better to prep themselves for the world?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So, it's actually interesting because one of my companies now, and I do a lot of work with students, it's called the College Success Program. And the truth is, I don't believe every single student should go to college. Like, every student has a different path. But there's I don't know if there's 2, but there's a few caveats that are important in making that decision. Number one, you have to be very clear on your goals. We always hear things like, oh, Bill Gates was a college dropout. Yeah, but he dropped out of Harvard. He didn't drop out of like 11th grade, remedial math, So number one, these college dropouts were already, like, when we look at the Steve Jobs and the Mark Zuckerbergs, these dudes were like very unique and very advanced. So a lot of times when people are going to college, they go, oh, I'm going to drop out. I'm going to go do that. But the truth is, if you don't have the network, if you don't know what your goal is, if you don't have a clear plan, it's the worst decision that you can make. if you don't have a clear goal plan, the reason why I'm such an advocate for college is not necessarily because of the education you get inside the classroom. It's because of the opportunities and the people you get connected with. It's so much easier to get mentorship when you say, oh, I'm a student and I'm doing a project. Or, oh, there's a professor, can you introduce me to someone? You know, I've won business plan competitions because I was a student business plan competitions to get the funding for my business. I met my mentor, my business partner, my wife, my best friend in college. So a lot of people go to college and they think, well, if I just go to the classroom and I come back, I'm going to be good. And if you do that, you will, no matter who you are, fail at college, no matter what your grades are. So if you have a plan and you know exactly what you need to do, and you have someone who's willing to mentor you, it could be one of the greatest opportunities you take. If you're not sure what to do, you need to get into a college environment and then utilize as many resources to find yourself. Because the truth is, if you don't have a way to support yourself, if you don't have a family that's going to support you, and you don't go to college, you're going to have to live. So usually what a lot of people wind up doing, unless they have a clear plan, is they work a minimum wage job, they get stuck, and then they never get out of it. So it's really important when you're making this decision to decide, what are my goals, what do I have access to, and what's most important to me right now.
Yep, love it, man. So, and then I know now as well. I mean, you're still have a lot of student coaching and teaching that you're doing, and you host the Art of Likability. What's that about, man?
Yeah, so we have a podcast called The Art of Likability. We're listened to in over 157 countries. And what we do is my mindset has always been the reason why I was able to be successful in business or achieve a level of success that people think is pretty awesome is simply because I never understood people. So I was always really uncomfortable around people. So I literally had to study, well, why is it that this person is charismatic and why is this person not? Why is it that when I say this, no one laughs, and when this person says it, everyone laughs? And what I realized through studying people, reading books, and doing all that kind of studying is that literally everything we want in life, everything, is based on relationships with people. I mean, the deal you want is one phone call away. The job you want is one phone call away from the right person. So my mindset was always, if I can learn how to get people to build a relationship with me, my life can change. And that's where the Art of Likeability came from. Basically took the 10 years of experience on, what I've learned and the things that I do, and we distill it into a very formulaic way. So for a lot of people, they say, oh, if you want to be likable, go out there and give value. But then for my mind, I'm like, well, what does that mean? How do I do something with that? So the Art of Likability teaches individuals specific things they can do to increase their likability so they can leverage it as a tool to build more relationships, close more deals, and have a happier personal life.
Yeah, so in the vast majority of our listener base are entrepreneurs in the real estate world, right? And when you're selling the biggest asset that most people own, man, it's that human connection is so critical. What are some of the things that you can immediately do? Like if I'm going to meet you right now, we're strangers and I'm meeting you right now, you're coming through an open house or whatever. What are some things that you would give a tip on to kind of help set that connection right away?
Yeah, so there's some very, very specific things I would recommend all folks do, especially the young entrepreneurs in real estate space, right? So the very first step is you don't want to just assume that you understand what someone wants, right? What I always recommend doing is, and when we were looking to buy our house, we had someone who was incredible. She wasn't just like, oh, how many bedrooms, what kind of space? It was questions about, well, how long do you want to live there? Why is it that you want this? They took the time to actually spend some time to find out what my goals are. What were bad experiences you had? What were homes you lived in that you hated that you want to avoid? What were homes you lived in, or who are homes that you've seen that you've absolutely loved? So it's taking just some very simple moments to say, hey, I'll get you the bedrooms and the square footage and all that kind of fun stuff that you want, but let me know about what your dreams and aspirations are. And then when you're actually selling a home, there's some very specific things one can do. Number one, if you can get someone to imagine themselves already living in the home, where would you put the house? Where would you put the couch? Where would you put the TV? Where would you put the bed? So if someone can actually start seeing themselves in the house and loving it, it's a lot easier for them to move forward with it. So those are some very simple things to do. In addition to that, some business side things. If you're not doing this, you're making mistakes. I would make, who are all of the mortgage brokers or who are all the people who would be partners that can refer you business? And I know one real estate agent who does this, and literally this is how he gets all of his business. Every Tuesday, he drives to all of these different mortgage brokers or lenders or people he has relationships with, and he drops off a box of donuts and a carton of coffee. And he goes, hey, what's going on, guys? It's Arel. I know you guys probably want some donuts. I got you covered. And he drops the donuts, and he's not dropping it off and going, hey, if you got any leads, send them my way, right? Like, he's not doing that because that the reciprocity is being built because he's being consistent. So what happens is, if there is a deal, if there is someone who needs something, are they going to send it to the random schmo or the dude that's been hooking them up with, donuts and coffee for the last 6 months? It's a long-term strategy. Donuts don't cost a lot of money. Coffee doesn't cost a lot of money. So you invest a little bit and you build actual relationships so you can get people wanting to, offer you deals. Now, you have to be good at what you do. You can't be horrible at what you do and be likable and think you'll be successful. But if you give reciprocity, if you give things that create that reciprocity feeling, and you care about people enough to find out what their goals are and how to help them, you'll see a lot of things start coming your way that you never thought possible before.
Yep. So I find that good is the worst enemy to greatness, right? It's so easy to get caught up in this. Oh, things are good enough. Get comfortable. You're at a point right now where you could probably just coast and be good, right? What keeps driving you, man? So you're not getting comfortable, so you're not settling, so you continue to grow and continue to level up.
Yeah, there's an idea that as soon as you accomplish something, it feels amazing and it's really temporary. I mean, anyone who's ever won a championship, they'll tell you, like, they'll win that championship and it's like, yeah, and you're like pouring the champagne on your head and you're pumping your fist. But there's this weird feeling the next morning where it's like, well, what else is there? Like, what's next? And I think if you don't have that desire, if you don't constantly say what's next, you're going to put yourself in a position where you get comfortable. And then I think as soon as you get comfortable, you fail. As soon as you start saying, oh, well, I got this, you know what happens? Oh, this bill comes out of nowhere, or this asset, depreciates, or something happens, and then you lose it all. I grew up in the projects on welfare in Brooklyn, New York, right? I'm consistently have this fear that I'm gonna fail and have to go move back there. So for my mindset, it's like it's never enough. Now, it's not that I don't appreciate my victories. Like, I love fist pumping and be like, "Yo, I won." But it's kind of like the ladder analogy, which is a very popular analogy. Is that when you climb a ladder, you have to do two things. You have to look down to see how far you've come, but you have to look up to see how much further you can go. And I think as long as you keep looking down to appreciate what you've done, and you keep looking up to see how much further you can go, you'll never want to stay at the same place. Because as soon as I think I'm doing good, my boy launches this incredible business, and I'm like, yo, like, if he can do this, why can't I? And that always drives me, the idea of saying, well, what else can I do? What else can I give? What other service can I provide? And you have to own that feeling so that you don't ever stay stagnant. Because as soon as you feel like I can coast, I promise you that's the beginning of the end.
So for you personally, man, is it the money that drives you, or is it just knowing that you're operating at your full potential? What is it that personally drives you?
To me, the biggest driver is to see how much I can be of service and how can I create. Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, this is something I teach to a lot of my clients when they work more closely with me. There is absolutely nothing wrong. Zero wrong. I don't know where this came from. There's something called the law of duality. You can, at the exact same time, do good, make good happen in the world, and make a really, really good living from it. Right? There's no reason saying you got to do good and be poor, or you got to do good and be a horrible human. So my mindset is consistently, how do I give the greatest good? How do I serve the most people? How do I consistently grow what I'm doing and proportionally grow, the legacy for my family, the wealth that I can create? So it's always a game. So my drive is always, how do I do more? How do I give more? How do I help more? And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to want a great life for yourself, because I think when you try to help and you don't take care of yourself, like, think about this, right? Have you ever been late? Like, you're rushing somewhere and there's like an old lady crossing the street. You honk your horn like, move it, old lady, get out the way. Like, you're mean to her because you haven't taken care of yourself because you're late. But if you're early, you might get out your car, you'll walk her across the street, you'll be nicer. So, like, the same situation based on how you're filled up on the inside changes how you react on the outside. So what drives me is, how can I serve more people and how can I grow more at the exact same time versus it being an inverse relationship? And for me, that's a lifetime process. It'll never end. I want to, I'm very spiritual. I have a belief in God, and I want to serve God in the best way that I can and bring amazingness into the world. So however I can do that, however I can give, that's what drives me. And again, as soon as I feel stagnant, as soon as I feel like I've done everything that I can do, that's when I know it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, so talking about your personal growth, man, what does that look like? What does your personal self development look like on maybe a daily, weekly basis?
Yeah. So I'm a huge advocate of. There's this YouTube channel. It's a free channel, and I love the videos they put out. It's called Motivation Grid. They put out these ridiculously motivating like montages. So like the video, they take like all these movie clips, like these really inspiring movie clips, and then they overlay like motivational quotes. So almost on a daily level, like if I'm running or washing dishes or doing any kind of like, monkey work that doesn't need a lot of mental bandwidth, I have a motivational video on YouTube playing that like fires me up. So there's that fire up. I always have a book that I'm reading. So I do a lot of speaking engagements. So I fly on planes and travel a lot. So I use my travel time as my learn time. So I'm always reading. So as soon as I finish a book, I pick up like I have more books in my queue than I'll probably ever read in my lifetime. In addition to that, I always think about what is the skill that I don't have right now. And I'm always asking people like, hey, I want to learn how to do this. Like one of the things I wanted to learn how to do was speak better and sell more from the stage, right? I wanted to be able to sell because like I'm speaking really well, but not selling really well. So I started asking like, yo, if I want to sell well, where do I go to learn how to do that from the stage? And there was this woman named Lisa Sasevich, and that's literally all she teaches. So I'll go to her online course, and then I'll go to her live boot camp. So for me, it's like that drip, the YouTube videos every day, the books, but then every now and again, I need like a big thing. So I'll go to like a live boot camp, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I'll do maybe one online course, maybe 2 online courses per year because I love online courses. But sometimes you never make the time to actually do them. So that's why I like fitting it into my schedule or going to a live event so I get that in-person feeling.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about that because so many people read a book because they just feel like they got to read a book. They don't do the due diligence of, well, what's the right book that I need for me at this time, or the
Right.
right course.
Exactly. It's so important to ask yourself right now, if there was one area in which I can improve upon that would have the greatest impact in my life, what would it be? And for some of us, it could be body language. For some of us, it could be being more punctual. For some of us, it could be learning how to have better communication skills. I can't stress that if you can talk to people and you can sell and you have a specialized skill. So I said 2 things before, so we'll make it 3. If you can sell and you can communicate with people and you have a specialized skill, you'll always be in a good place. So whatever is an area that you're feeling most insecure about that fall into your strength zone. There anything someone has written a book about and can show you how to get better at it, like anything you want. So it's your goal to find that. So if something resonates with you, if something kind of like sparks, get it. The other thing that I do, this is a habit of mine, is probably why I have so many books waiting to read. If I ever have a conversation with someone I admire and they reference a book, I immediately pull up my Amazon app. I have Amazon Prime, so I get free shipping, and I buy it immediately. Like, because I say, if this person is successful and they like it, I may not know what it is, but I trust them. So if you come across anyone you trust who references a book, buy it immediately.
Yep, love it, man. So you've got all these businesses that you run. You're speaking all over the country and possibly even internationally, right? So, you've got to be very regimented, very scheduled. What does that look like for you, man?
Yeah, so I'm actually not very regimented or very scheduled, believe it or not. But so I do a lot based on like just pure energy. Luckily, and this comes with time. This doesn't happen immediately. You build a team around you that has the skill sets you don't have. So I have a personal assistant who is very organized. She keeps my calendar on track. She works really well. So I know how to do everything that I need to do. I'm just not always good at necessarily corralling it all. So for me, instead of putting all this mental bandwidth into trying to corral like my brain, which goes all over the place, I kind of outsource it. I go, okay, Jamie, this is what I need you to do for me because you're awesome at it and I'm not. So I think one, figure out what you can outsource, what you can automate. I'm really big into automation. Like I think if you can find technology that can do things for you. Like, so for example, there's a really great software called Yesware. You ever heard of Yesware?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you're gonna love it, right? So it's a Gmail plugin, right? So I'll send an individual email to you, right? And it will let me know if you opened it or not. So it's kind of like how in a mass email, you can do a check. You can actually do this with an individual email, but the person receiving it doesn't know. And you can, there's this other thing called Boomerang for Gmail, right? So this is the 2 things that create automation. Boomerang says, I'll send this out. If they don't reply in a week, remind me that they didn't reply. And then it'll send me an email saying this person didn't reply. So literally, I combine those two within my Gmail. I send an email out to, like, whether it's a client or a prospect. I then know if they received it because I get my alert. And if they don't respond, Boomerang will follow up with me and say, hey, this person didn't respond. So then I can just go, hey, just want to make sure you got my email. I never let them know, like, I know you read it, like, I'm not being a creeper. But something like that will automate it so that I'm not thinking about, am I following up with everyone? Did I miss anyone? I can literally remove it from my mental bandwidth. So that automation of creating a system that does it for you is important. And then finding people, whether it's like you can go on to like Fiverr to find people to do things. You can get really inexpensive virtual assistants. I had a virtual assistant for 2 years who lived in the Philippines until I needed someone who was more in person in town with me. So you got to just find ways to outsource it what you can. So either you get really inexpensive technology, inexpensive labor, or you find someone who has the skill sets you don't have.
Love it, man. So I find so many successful people, they take care of their health. They have a routine that they kind of follow that gives them that energy that puts them in that right state. Do you have a routine that you do, man?
Yeah, man, that's so great that you asked that question, man, because it doesn't get asked enough. And I'm really passionate about this. So I have this philosophy, and it's called the fitness chain, right? And I borrowed it from this really great Jerry Seinfeld quote. So this is the way the quote goes. Jerry Seinfeld was asked, what's the one thing you can do to become a great comedian? And what he said was, don't break the chain. He said, here's what you do. You get a big calendar, and you put a big red X through it on a day, and all you do is write comedy for 1 hour. He said, and then you do it the next day and the next day. And then eventually you see this big red X, you get this chain. He says, your only goal is to not break the chain. So literally, if all you do is every day, no matter what, you write 1 hour worth of comedy. He's like, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, but that's how you become great. So that's what I did with fitness. So my mentality is every single day, I have to do at least 5 minutes of fitness. So that could be 100 sit-ups and 100 push-ups. And that's all I did. That's fine. Like, so that'll be like a throwaway day where it's like I did something, but it's not nothing. And then like I'll actually go to the gym one day. But literally every single day, I have to do something. And a lot of people with fitness, they go, oh, if I don't have 30 minutes to work out, I'm not going to get a benefit from it. So I'm not going to do it. Or if I don't have an hour, or if I don't know the exact regimen to get, and it's all BS, right? Like literally, if all you did every day was 25 push-ups and that was your total fitness regimen, you'll be in better shape than like 50% of America, right? If all you did every day is, like you said, every day, I'm going to drink 1 glass of water before I eat each meal, and that's all I'll do, and I just won't break the chain with that, you'll be more healthy than like 80% of America because they're drinking soda and crap and all that other stuff. So my mentality about fitness is create a fitness chain. Like every day, and I have a partner, I actually have someone that I do this with, and I text him the workout that I did every day, and he texts me the workout he did. He's my best friend. So every day we don't let each other break the chain. And if he breaks the chain, I hammer him. I tear into him like, you're gonna be a loser, you ain't doing nothing, you little baby. And if I break the chain, he hammers into me, and we have a competitive nature where we don't want the other person to like get us. So for me, as long as you do at least 5 minutes of something a day, 5 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes of yoga, 50, buy, one of the things I do too, and I highly recommend everyone do this, buy a set of dumbbells, right? I bought a set of 20s, a set of 35s, a set of 50s. So if the dumbbells are already in your house, you can just literally curl them for 10 reps and then like go to sleep, and you did something. But if you let a day go by and you do nothing, you're gonna fail.
So in business, man, you've got 80% of entrepreneurs that fail in the first 5 years, and then you're 5 to 10 of those that make it. Another 80% of those fail. So it's such a small survival rate. What do you think? What do you think like the main driving reason for that high failure rate is?
Yeah, so number one, a big problem that people have is they think their biggest problem is that they don't have money. I hear this all the time. When I go to entrepreneurs, I say, what's the one thing that is your biggest problem? And they say, oh, I need more capital. I need more loans. I need more money. If I just have more money. And the truth is, that's never the problem. It's never the problem. The real problem is you're not figuring out how to monetize what you're doing. I'm not big into taking business loans. I'm not big into, because I had the credit card debt, I'm not big into using credit cards. My mindset is always, how do I, it's called the MVP, oh man, minimal viable product, right? How can I create something that is of minimal viable so it has the least cost to me, but has the most value and I can sell to people? So I'll give a really great example. I created that system, right? So if people want to learn like an online course on how to be a speaker, we have something called True Speaking Success. I built it, I started building it, but then I sold it before I finished it, right? So it's not like I sunk in all of this money and then I built it. I said, yo, here's this thing, and here's a little bit of how it's going to work. And then if people buy it, then I go, great, I can finish out building it. But I'm not going to build it all and then spend all this money because I think money is my issue. And then nobody wants it. So I'm really big into pre-selling. Like every single business I've ever built, I've pre-sold the product or the service. So if I want to do a new speaking engagement, I don't sit there and build the whole speaking engagement, spend 7 hours. I create a title and a description, and I send this out to clients. And if anyone books it, then I go, great, now I got to actually build it. So my whole thing is, how do I get paid first before I spend all the time and energy to create it? And the truth is, if you can't pre-sell something, you probably won't be able to sell it. So you have a lot of people like who want to do a restaurant or something like that, or something crazy like that's huge financial cost. Get like a food truck, or get like a cart, or like cater people at lunch. And if people aren't willing to pay you for it, your food's not good enough. So if you're in real estate, for example, you're like, oh, I'm not making enough money, I need to figure out what to do. So we'll ask yourself, well, how can I get more clients to agree to send business to me? Maybe I got to give more donuts. Maybe I got to, go to more events and not slam people with my business card, because real estate agents, truthfully, are a dime a dozen. They are. So what's going to make you stand out is those relationships and how you give to people. Maybe you can teach people about this really cool niche within real estate that nobody knows about, and you can pre-sell a course to get some income on it and then create it to sell it. Whatever is your thing, figure out how you can provide the least cost to you up front, but get the most profit in the long run. As long as you have that mentality, I don't think you'll fall into a lot of the cash crunches that cause people to fail.
Yep, love it, man. So we see so many entrepreneurs that are amazing at business, that bank cash, that have these big fat wallets, but they get divorced. They don't know their wife. They don't know their kids. Like how do you? I mean, because dude, you're a driver, right? And I mean, it's hard to get our minds off of this. How do you make sure that you're not neglecting your wife and making sure that you're keeping that strong with that, your friends, your family, those other relationships that are important to you?
Absolutely. It's a great question. You're asking really great questions today because I'm really passionate about this subject too. Here's the easiest way to do it, right? Honestly, it's a weird mental trick, but it works for me, okay? I want everyone from now on to treat their wife or their husband or their boyfriend, girlfriend, or their kids as your number one most important client. That's it, right? I want you to have the mentality that they're clients, right? So if I ask you, oh, who's your best client? If they picked up the phone and they called you right now, you'd stop everything. Oh, excuse me, this is an important call, I have to take it, right? Your best client, do you provide a little extra customer service for them? Do you go the extra mile? Do you remember their birthday and send them a gift because they're such a good client? Think about how you would treat your best client. And if you're not treating your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, children like that, you're going to fail. Because what I found is no matter how much money and success and happiness you make, if you don't have a great relationship with the person that you're spending your life with, everything else doesn't matter. And what a lot of people do is they bury themselves in their work because their relationship is so crappy, right? It's so crappy. It's so much easier to control my work because it's not going to call me to the mat about my insecurities, and people think I'm awesome at work. But my wife is saying, oh, you don't do this, you don't do that. And what she's really doing, she's calling out to you and saying yo, I need you to be the greatest man in my life. So one, I would treat those people as if they were your best client. And here's how you figure out how to do it. There's a really, really great book. It's a really great book. And there's a free online quiz you can take, which you can literally bypass the book and just do the quiz. It's called The 5 Love Languages. This book is game changing because sometimes people will, I'll spend all this time for my girlfriend or wife, right, or whatever your situation is, and you get them a gift, and you spend all this time getting them a gift, and you put all this energy, and the person goes, oh, thank you. And you're like, you don't care, you don't appreciate things. Why do I do things? Because she doesn't receive love by receiving gifts. She receives love by you washing the dishes or you cleaning the floor. That lets her know you love her, right? So you not only have to serve them at the highest level, you have to figure out how to serve them. So it's a really free quiz. You go to 5lovelanguages.com/profile, and then you can find out what's the number one way you receive love. And then you have your partner do it, and you figure out the number one way they receive love. And then literally you give them love in the way they receive it, and you treat them as if they were your best client. And then literally you could have $50 in your bank account, but if you have people who love you, you feel successful. And you can have $1 million in a bank account, and if you don't feel like people love you, you feel like you're a loser. So you drown yourself in alcohol and drugs and these other, food to try to hide this pain. So if you treat those relationships as if they're your best client, no matter how much money you have or don't have, you'll feel successful in life.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it is weird. We spend so much time educating ourselves on how to do our job, but we read 0 books on how to be a great father.
It's crazy, right? It's so true. Like if you look at the percentage of books we've all read on how to make money, grow a business, and we look at the money, because we have this weird, stupid belief of happily ever after. And I actually believe, because I'm very like formulaic in how I do things, like literally learning how to love someone is a skill. And none of us develop it. So that's why so many people get into relationships. We go through the bunny phase and we feel really excited for like 6 months. And then we repeat the same scripts of being unhappy because we never built the skill sets on how to love. So if you can take the mentality that relationships and love does not come naturally, like nothing else in the world comes that easy, right? You don't lose weight easily. You don't get into shape easily. You don't build a successful business easily. You don't build wealth easily. Why in the hell would you think relationships should be easy? And that is literally the most important thing in the entire world. So you have to be as dedicated. Like I read books on fathering, I read books on relationships as much as I'm reading books on business because I don't want to be a public success, but a private failure.
Yeah. Well, and it's all congruent anyway, because it's so hard to focus on your business when you don't know if you're coming home to divorce papers, right? you just can't do it effectively. So I love it, man. So, it's said out there that you're a result of 5 people that you spend most time with.
Right.
I get this question almost daily from the podcast of, hey, man, I'm at that point where I need to surround myself in a new environment. I'm here. I want to start hanging out with people up here. They're like, how do I reach up for friends, man? Like you're a busy cat. I can't just call you up on the phone and be like, hey, dude, let's go hang out tonight, right? How do you reach up and find those people at the next level?
Right. So this is where some of the stuff we talked about earlier ties back in because everything ties back in, right? So you build a very specialized skill, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. There was this guy that wanted to get in with me, and he was a video and audio producer, right? That's what he did. And he was I was like, I'm busy, right? Like I literally can't spend a lot of time with people, but I wanted to start my podcast. And he said, hey, listen, man, I'll produce your podcast for you for free. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yo, like I literally like in exchange, all I want to do is like get to know you. Like literally like no strings attached. I'm not trying to upsell you on anything. So like literally he became my podcast producer because he's like, yo, I'm really good. I have this specialized skill and he sent me stuff. And I know that this is something that you want to do. I'll do it for you for free. So we became friends. And then like I got to know him. It's like, yo, this dude's actually really, really awesome. And now we have business partners in certain ventures that we do. And where there is revenue being made for both of us in a situation. So what you want to do is if you do want to level up and you want to get to those people, first figure out what skill set have you built that you can leverage and literally give it away. Like I'm a really big advocate. Like, so for example, let's say somebody, like in the real estate space, there's probably a lot of, and I don't know the world so well, but like there's a guy named Cole Hatter. That's a friend of mine. And he does a lot of real estate development, right? So he does these courses where he like goes on a stage and he speaks to a lot of real estate people. And if I wanted to get in with Cole, I'd be like, yo, what's the next event you're doing? I'll throw out boxes. I'll set up chairs. I'll sweep floors. Like I'll do the like horrible work that nobody else wants to do. And you don't have to pay me anything. Like literally, I will do this just to be around what you're doing. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm not asking for you to give me anything for free, but like, everyone has work and things that they don't want to do, that if they had someone they can trust who's not trying to be like a snake oil salesman, they would love to give them the opportunity to do it. So I would say take the skill set that you've learned, get really clear on the type of people and then literally just offer it to them. Be like, yo, I love, like, Joshua, man, I love this podcast. I think it would be incredible if started using Clamor, right? Like, have you heard of Clamor? It's like it's a really cool tool, right? So basically the way Clamor works is you can take like a 15-second clip of your podcast and upload it to Clamor for free, and it creates a video and an audio. So if people are searching through Clamor and it has a really big, audience, people may go, oh, I never heard of, Joshua Smith. Let me check this out. Oh, I like this podcast. But you probably are busy and you've got your systems. And it's like, oh, I don't want to go through. So if they said to you, hey, Josh, I'll go through your podcast, every podcast you put out, I'm going to pull out the best 15-second clip and I'm going to upload it to Clamor because I love the work that you're doing. I bet you if someone said, and they do that for free and they were good at it, you eventually might be like, yo, this person, like, whatever they need, I'll do anything for them because they're giving so much value to me. So whoever you want to get in with, figure out how you can support them and help them with your skill set. Give it away for free. And it may take 6 months before anything happens. But eventually, if you do it at a high level, people will almost feel obliged. It's that reciprocity we talked about earlier to want to help you back, because if someone gave you so much value and then you started realizing your listenership grew because of these Clamor steps that this other person was taking, you would do anything to help that person. So it's the mindset of, how do I give and help this person? Maybe they may have more money and more wealth and more skills, but I know I can do something for them, maybe with time, that they can't do. And that becomes a huge benefit.
Love it, man. Love it. So, a couple last questions for you. But before we get in those questions, what's the best way to reach out to you? What's the best way to get to your podcast, to get to somebody's interested in some of your coaching products? What's the best way to learn more about you and to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the really cool thing about my name, and it's Arel Moodie, I'm the only Arel Moodie that exists in the world. So if you type in, even if you butcher my name, Google will autocorrect it for you, right? But I'm the only Arel Moodie on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. And I'm very active on social media. So if you connect with me, that'd be great. If you're listening to this right now, I want to give you a really cool free report. This is how you do it. If you're listening to it on your phone, just text 44222. So that's the number you're going to text to. And in your text, just put the word awesome sauce, right? Just one word, right? So text the word awesome sauce to the number 44222. And we're going to send you a free report that literally shows you exactly how to increase your likability in any situation instantly and really, really powerfully. It's an awesome report. It's totally free. So just text awesome sauce to 44222, and then it'll ask for your email. You give your email and it automatically sends it to you. And it's a really cool report. And then you can get some more information from us, and hopefully check out our podcast, Art of Likability. And it's amazing content. We do free content every week, and hopefully it'll help the folks that you're working with.
Yep, love it, man, love it. So if something happened, man, and let's say you get it financially wiped out, like all this goes away. Your family's good, you're good, health's good, but you've retained all the information, all the knowledge that you've learned through all your years of doing this. What are the first few things you do immediately, really on a zero budget, to go out there and rebuild?
Right. So if I had a zero budget, I had to rebuild exactly what I'm doing now. This is exactly what I would do. The first thing is I would put up a really, really basic website, right? I'd go to like Wix.com because it's free, right? And I would put up a website. I would take some pictures of myself. I would explain the services and the things that I provide to people. Because if I had the knowledge of what I know how to do, I would just recreate that website, right? The next thing I would do is I would figure out who are the people that I want to serve. So in my case, I do a lot of speaking in colleges and high schools still to this day, right? So I would then go to Google and I would type in, director, name of university, and my zip code, right? And I would get a list of all the universities within like a 50-mile radius of where I am. And then I would get their emails because it's public information. And I would send them an email with a description of what I do, a link to my website. And I would say, I would love to partner with you on an upcoming event where this might be a good fit. Let me know what you think. And I would literally repeat that process over and over and over again until I got one person to say yes. And then if they said yes, I would simply ask them, hey, what budget do you have allocated to work with someone? And they would let me know if they do or if they don't. And if they don't, I would still do it anyway, just so I can build up testimonials, social proof, videos of myself speaking, pictures of myself speaking. And if they did have a budget, I would take it so I can get some money. And I would just literally rinse and repeat that process until I started building up my client base all over again. So I think a lot of people think it takes a lot of like money and energy to do it, but what it really takes is just just doing what other people won't, so you can have what other people don't.
Yeah, love it, man. What's like the one question that either I didn't ask you or other interviews that you're doing that people don't ask you that they wish they'd ask you?
Oh man, well that question right there is a great question. But I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize is that it's 100% possible right now to start increasing your success and happiness by doing something really, really simple, right? I want you to get strategic about the people you want to build relationships with. And I don't get this question a lot about how do you strategically build relationships. So what I would recommend everyone do is literally get a sheet of paper out, or the notes section in your phone, and say, who are the 5 people in my life right now that I need to build the strongest relationship with? Go 3 professional and 2 personal, right? So if you have a job, or maybe if you're a real estate agent, maybe it's your broker. Like making sure your broker loves you and you have a great relationship with them, which is important. Maybe it's a mortgage broker, right? So you get specific and intentional about who these people are. Then the next thing I would recommend doing is seeing at what's something you can do to increase your relationship with that person. Like right now, maybe it could be as simple as texting them for no reason to say, hey, I really love your leadership. You really motivate me. I just want to let you know I care about what you're doing. Thank you so much. Maybe it's writing them a handwritten letter, because when was the last time anyone received a handwritten letter in the mail, right? So get strategic. So don't just go out there and try to be the best, all things to all people. Get strategic in the people that you want to build relationships with, and then actively, and I recommend doing this too, literally in my phone right now, I have a reminder that goes off every day at 2 p.m. and it says, get in touch with someone and say hello. That's all it says, right? And then I look at who are the most strategic people that I need to get in touch with on my list right now, and then I stay in touch with them, because I know that if I stay in touch with them and I build relationships with strategically, eventually, I don't know how it's going to happen, but what I've consistently found in my life is good things come back to me. Now, I shouldn't do good just to get good. I want to be very clear, because if you do good just to get good, then it wipes itself out. You literally put it out there and you let, the universe, God, whatever is the word you choose to believe in, bring it back to you from a pure heart.
Yeah, love it, man, love it. So, I started this podcast, dude, to, it just seems like in all entrepreneurs, I operate 5 businesses today, and in all those different businesses, it seems like most of the coaches, most of the gurus are dudes that have never done it. They're operating from a place of theory, and I just got kind of sick of it. I'm like, let me go out there and interview the doers, dudes that are in the trenches, that are actually building these epic lives and epic businesses, and hear it from you guys and deliver that information out there to the world. So with that being said, man, do you have any last words of advice or motivation for our listener base that they can take from you, being this uber successful guy at such a young age, where they can go out there and create that life that they know they truly want and deserve?
Yeah, man. Great question. You absolutely have to limit the time between thought and action. I can't stress this enough, right? So you listen to this podcast with me. Here's what I would hate, right? And I say this at the end of every one of my podcasts. The information that Josh and I talked about today, it's not going to change your life at all. Zero. The information does nothing. The implementation of this information will completely change your life. So what most people do who listen to this podcast, they're like, yo, Josh just brought on this great guest. This dude gets the best. This dude's awesome. And then they do nothing. So what I would recommend doing is every time you listen to a podcast, every time you read a book, just simply ask yourself, what action step am I going to take immediately because of it? So if you read this podcast, maybe you're going to go take that online profile, the 5 love languages. Maybe you're going to pick up that book, you can't teach a kid to read in a seminar. Maybe you're going to text awesome sauce to 44222, right? You're going to do a specific step. And the more you become someone who limits the time between thought and action, the more successful you'll become. Because what most people do is, yo, that's a really great thing. I'm going to, what I'm going to do? I'm going to re-listen to that podcast, and then I'm going to take notes, and then I'm going to take action, and then they never do it. So if you listen to it, what's the one thing that stands out in your mind? And go do that. And the more you limit the time between your thoughts and your actions, and that's a quote I got from a guy named Bill Glazer, who's really, really smart, you become unbelievably successful. It's the greatest piece of advice I could give to anyone who's passionate about really becoming successful.
Yeah. Powerful words, man. And it's, I end every podcast with this, which is totally in alignment with what you just said there. But to our listener base, you guys, information without implementation is a start of delusion, right? You got to take that information, take action on it, and then that creates what power in your life. Information is not power. So you guys just heard some amazing, awesome nuggets of just some awesome information, man. Take that. Text awesome sauce to that number right now. Take action right now, you guys, to go out there and create that life that you know you want and you deserve. And Arel, man, this has been a huge honor, dude. I know how busy you are, and it's been a massive honor having the show. I greatly appreciate you and commend you for all your success, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you putting this together. I mean, I can tell that you're putting together something that's really different and unique. And your listeners, if they've not done so, hit the subscribe button to Joshua's podcast. This is going to make sure you get his podcast and you don't miss an episode, because this is amazing stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you listeners, thank you guys again, and we will see you next time.